You wake up, and the war is finally over. You've survived the bombs, the chaos, and terror. But when you step outside your door and look around, something feels completely wrong. There's no government, no police on the streets, no one giving orders. And the gnawing pain in your stomach reminds you that you haven't had a real meal in weeks. This happened to Germany in May 1945, and what happened next is a story that will leave you speechless. The morning after Germany's unconditional surrender didn't feel like the beginning of peace. It felt like the end of everything. The sun climbed above the ruins, but its flames spreaded poverty, inflation, hunger, and sadness forever. Shattered cities stretched to the horizon, and families were broken apart. Streets stood empty, and millions of people found themselves standing at the edge of hunger, fear, and a future that seemed impossible to imagine. Germany in the summer of 1945 was not a country anymore. It was a wound, raw and open, bleeding and aching with no clear path to healing. For the first time in 12 years, Germans lived without the constant stream of orders, slogans, and commands that had defined every single day of their existence. But this freedom, this sudden absence of control, didn't feel like liberation at all. It felt like chaos. It felt like standing on the edge of an abyss with no idea what lay below. The structure that had oppressed them for so long had also given them a terrible kind of certainty. Now, with that structure gone, they faced something even more frightening: the unknown. The cities that had been the industrial giants just a decade earlier, where streetcars ran on schedule and families walked through parks on Sunday afternoons, were now the monstrous skeletons of cement and steel. Half of Germany's urban housing had been destroyed. Factories sat silent, their machinery twisted and broken. Railways had been bent into improbable shapes. Bridges had collapsed into rivers, their pieces jutting out of the water like broken bones. Church towers leaned at dangerous angles, threatening to topple at any moment. Fires still smoldered under collapsed floors, weeks after the last bombs fell. The ruins themselves seemed to whisper a terrible truth. This is what total war looks like. This is what happens when everything falls apart. But if you were there in that moment, standing in those ruins, none of the physical destruction would have mattered as much as the gnawing, constant, desperate hunger. The German food system had collapsed even before the war ended, but by summer, the crisis hit with full force. People were surviving on 900 to 1,200 calories a day, half of what a human body needs to stay healthy. They ate thin soups that were more water than anything else. They gathered wild herbs from the rubble,
They pulled dandelion leaves from cracks in the pavement. They swept burnt grain from the floors of destroyed mills and tried to make something, anything, edible from it. Women stood in impossibly long lines outside bakeries, waiting for 6, 7, 8 hours, hoping that a few loaves might appear. Children searched through ruins for edible scraps, competing with rats for whatever could be found. Farmers in the countryside became lifelines, though Allied forces required them to surrender much of their harvest. For many families, the question was no longer, "What will we eat tomorrow?" It had become something more desperate, more primal. Will there even be a tomorrow? One American soldier wrote home describing a woman he saw crying over a single potato, clutching it like it was the most precious thing in the world. Because in that moment, it was. But the story does not end here. The fear was constant and overwhelming. But there was another kind of destruction happening that was the psychological collapse. Germans were dealing with shame over the crimes of the Nazi regime, disbelief that the so-called 1,000-year Reich lasted only 12 years, fear of what the Allies might do to them, relief that the bombing had finally stopped. And underneath all of this was a deep, crushing confusion. Hitler's voice, which had been on the radio constantly for 12 years, was silent forever. The ideology that had filled every textbook, every speech, every billboard was gone overnight. For over a decade, the regime had told them exactly who they were, what to think, what to believe, who to hate, who to worship. Now that voice was gone. And in its place was just emptiness, a silence that felt heavier than the bombs. Germans stood in the ruins asking themselves the most frightening question: who are we now? In those first 100 days, politics didn't matter, philosophy didn't matter, the future of the nation didn't matter. Germans cared about 4 things: water, food, shelter, security. That's it. Money was worthless. The currency meant nothing, so markets went back to the old way. But something beautiful started happening in the middle of all this horror. Communities began forming fragile networks of support. Neighbors shared what little they had. Strangers helped strangers. Human kindness, which had been buried under years of dictatorship and war, started showing up again in small, quiet ways. Children started playing in the ruins. To them, bombed-out buildings became castles and fortresses. They turned the destruction into adventure. Women organized themselves to clean debris from the streets, working together, clearing paths through the rubble brick by brick. Men gathered usable materials from collapsed buildings, sorting bricks, stacking them, getting ready to rebuild. Church bells rang for years, not as warnings of air raids, but as symbols that people had survived, as calls to community. Allied soldiers handed out chocolate to children who'd never tasted anything so sweet. Makeshift schools reopened in damaged classrooms. Teachers did what they could with whatever materials they could find. The postal system slowly started working again. Letters began moving across the country. The messages were simple, but powerful. I am alive. Are you there? We made it. For the first time since the surrender, people could imagine a future. It was distant, uncertain, fragile, but it was there. By autumn 1945, Germany had absolutely nothing. No currency that worked, no political system, no food security, no functioning industry, no national identity to unite around.